Hi, I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates, and today we want to take a look at this updated color combination. We're using a grapevine form to create that spiral pattern in the design and create that motion and different look. So let's take a look at creating this design. So here I'm just using one of the terracotta simple dish gardens, so a value container that's inexpensive. And then I've taken some of the grapevine garland and I've wet it and I put it in a garbage bag overnight so that it becomes more pliable. So I did that a little bit earlier, and then we're just going to start coming in, getting one end good and inserted. We want to create some tension with this grapevine, so we're going to pull it apart and create some different spirals in this design. And I'm going to come up, and so here I'm just going to come in and do some bind wire to attach the two strongest pieces. To start that tension. I'm using the brown bind wire, and I'm able just to utilize that and easily kind of curl those ends so that they look a little bit like the grapevine curls. I'm going to separate a little bit more, and I just want to get some tightness to this. So a couple things that you can do. You could use a wood pick to be able to center that piece and get it to go into the foam. Otherwise, sometimes you can just cut it. But I want a little bit of the floral material to come across the top so that some of this grapevine will go through, and so I'll be able to do some separation once I'm starting to insert my flowers. So that's our base. The next thing we're going to utilize is the Leucadendron. So the Leucadendron has that really strong stem. So I'm just going to come in and go through my grapevine structure and come in, and you can see how those floral materials can become part of the armature. And we're putting them in a spiral fashion. So you can see I'm going to keep the heads moving in that spiral fashion. Next, I've got some roses, and this is the blueberry rose. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to use 2 tones of the rose and come together. Oh, I got to catch some of that. And then I have a cool water rose, so that they have a couple friends together with the different tints, tones, and shades of that material. But you can see how I'm turning those heads into each other. You can see I have a big open space of foam through the middle of this design. And that is to give more of an increased perceived value. So what I'm going to do is place a piece of moss. So I've got some mood moss there. And I put that mood moss in, so it's like a do not use spot through there. And then, so I'm keeping my flowers all down in this spiral pattern and just a void in the middle. Now you could add in like a grapevine ball into the center, or for a holiday meal, you could add like some gourds or a Christmas ornament. any type of structure. I have a little bit of Privet that I'm going to come in with next. And we're just going to continue to follow this pattern. This is on a stronger stem too, so I can come in and utilize this, just coming through and add that depth into the design. And just increasing the strength of the armature. So you saw I only tied it in a couple places, but it really feels really strong through there. And then I'm gonna add some of this Privet, so I've got some more upward presence, some that's more down to the table, so that you can see that throughout. And that's just adding that extra textural element in there. And then next we're gonna come in with a little bit of our agonis. And this is the same thing. So on this, and also filler flowers, many times I'll bring it back here and then lay those 3 pieces on themselves so that I can create a stronger bunch. If I can insert it on those main stems and do one insertion versus multiple insertions, I'm going to be much more efficient with my labor and get more of an impactful insertion. Adding a few more of those spirals in. You saw that I didn't do a ton of foliage material that went in to start off with. You can take a look at how that's going. All right, so next we're gonna come in and add some value flowers. And so we have some purple buttons here, some chrysanthemums. So for me, with customers, the arrangement lasts as long as the last flower that dies. So I'm always adding in some of the value flowers in with some of my designer decorator flowers. Those Leucadendrons help me structurally, and they also added that tropical influence in that's not normally seen in some arrangements. So it creates a little bit of a conversation piece on that. And then we're gonna add in a couple pieces of the LBR grown Alstromeria. And this Alstro is Pompeii, and it's listed in there as a burgundy, but it has a little bit of that plum undertone. So you can see how that adds just another textural quality into this design. And then we have this fabulous mauve stock that we're gonna come in, and we're continuing that pattern to bring that spiral motion. So that one's a little bit more down, and then I'm gonna come up with one over in here, and I'm still following that directional pattern, creating that spiral. There I just added some Hypericum that add that waxy type texture, and then we're gonna come in just with some finishing elements. So I've got a Nobbio carnation here, and if you take a look at our tips and tricks, we've got one where we've just ripped the calyx of the carnation to be able to open that up a little bit more, and it won't decrease the life of that carnation. But we're gonna come in with some of these low, and it'll finish up my middle area. I don't have to add a ton of foliage, and it'll add some depth of color down in there and be a long-lasting element for your customers. Of course, you know I'm always a fan of purple, but doing this with the grapevine just kind of elevated it, and we're gonna add a little bit more of that brown accent to just add a little bit more richness and depth of color. Lastly, I'm gonna come in with my scoops dancing over the top, but I'm putting it in last because of it's a little bit more of a fragile item. So these are buttons. This one's a lavender button. That's a disc bud, and so it's a cremin, so they're like dahlia-like, but they are a little bit fragile. So I put them in toward the end of my design to be able to feature them and not have to worry about them potentially shattering. You can see here I've left the foliage on. You can see that the foliage is kind of overpowering as far as the button, but it does continue to grow, and it's a really long-lasting product. So I'm really liking all the different cremones and button style disc buds that are coming on the market to really add that additional textural feeling to this. I'm gonna get it a little bit shorter. Just one last look. I've got a little bit of this brown chocolate transparent oak, and this can be used year-round, not just for holidays or fall designs. Adding the brown influence right now we're seeing happen a lot in interior design, and you can see how it just adds that richness to this design and elevates it. So here's our completed design, and you can see that rich combination of those browns and shades of violet really combine to create a textural mix of materials. From the earthiness that comes in from the grapevine to the velvety textures that you see with the roses and other materials. Just utilizing that spiral fashion and leaving that void in the middle is one of the most important things. It makes it an updated design style, so it draws you in and you're able to see like that clump of moss in the middle and wonder, or you can utilize that space for some other elements or gift items that could go along with it. They could pull it out and still have a fabulous design on their table. If you like this design, make sure and give us a thumbs up. The flowers that are used are going to be down in the description on this video. And if you have any questions, type them in and let us know how we're doing. I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates, and I hope I inspired you to create some fabulous florals.